Welcome back to the line. I am one of your hosts, Coach Manny, and I am really excited about this episode. We sat down with Coach Ben Lee, assistant coach at Siena men's basketball, and talked about his journey from being a high school and college player to working in the grassroots space to coaching at the Division One high major and mid major level, and how each step shaped how he sees the game. Now, to all my players out there, Coach Lee has a lot to do with Siena's scouting and recruiting. So we obviously got into what he really looks for when recruiting a player. Beyond the stats, beyond the rankings and the highlight tapes, what are coaches really looking at when evaluating a player? You'll probably be surprised at what he said. We also had an honest conversation about NIL, the realities, the decision making behind it, and why there's still so much confusion about how it actually works. So, if you're a player trying to understand how coaches think, or if you're a parent trying to navigate this landscape the right way, this is firsthand insight you need to hear. So let's get into it. Ben, appreciate your time. I know there's a lot going on mid-season. So before we get started, I always try to ask a question to every one of our guests. The question I have for you is, when's the last time you had a normal weekend?
Man, normal weekend. Normal weekend would have probably had to be, I'd say maybe one in early September, right when the
Wow,
kids got off the campus. I'd say that's the last normal weekend I've had.
man. So as Manny asked you that question, give us a rundown of your week as an assistant coach. When we've always talked, and for those who don't know, your head coach, Jay Mack, was he's a Syracuse guy. I used to see him, and I know when we talked, it's kind of funny. I remember him going into Syracuse as a freshman. I'm like, damn, I'm getting kind of old. Um, but so tell us, first of all, your enjoyment at Siena. I know we have a previous discussion about your journey. Can you kind of light the audience of your journey and coming up to Siena?
Yeah, I mean, obviously wanted to coach for as long as I can remember, probably since middle school. Figured out, obviously with your Virginia Elite program, I've seen some high level, middle school basketball, and I was playing locally, thought I was pretty nice, and went and played with a team like yours, and realized pretty quickly that pro basketball wasn't something that was going to be in my future.
Right.
So pretty much wanted to coach since then. Ended up playing Division III at Union College, which is actually just about 20 minutes from Siena.
Mm-hmm.
So got to know this area really well during those 4 years. Played there for 4 years. We went to the NCAA tournament twice, had a great experience, and had worked with the City Rocks, the EYBL program, during my last couple of years in college. That kind of got my foot in the door in terms of higher level, college
Right.
basketball, grassroots basketball. Then spent a year out at the University of Washington as a graduate assistant. Tremendous experience. We had Jaden McDaniels, Isaiah Stewart on that team, 2 first-round picks. So had a tremendous experience there, and then went back and worked for Chad Babel and made hoops for about 18 months or so. That's obviously where Coach Gadsden and I built our relationship and got to know each other really well. And, I had a front row seat to Virginia Elite there for a couple years. And,
Yes.
that was a great experience for me. And then Coach Hop, my boss at Washington, our head coach, he brought me back out to, the University of Washington. So I was director of operations there for a year, then was promoted, was an assistant coach, and was our recruiting coordinator there for a year. And, Coach Hopkins is actually the guy who recruited GMAC to Syracuse as a player.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I had known GMAC really since I was a graduate assistant for Hop in 2019. So me and GMAC had known each other, built our own relationship, outside of Hop over the years.
Right.
And when he got the job at Siena, I had known the program so well from just being right down the road when I was playing Division III, and only grew up, 2.5, 3 hour drive from here. So I had known the Siena program well. And when he got the job, it was just he asked me to come be his right-hand man, and it was probably the easiest yes I've ever said. So, it's been great working for him, the past, man, I guess it's been almost a year and a half now. So it's been great, getting our feet planted here at Siena, and I think we got a really good thing going.
Yeah, I know you guys right now. You had a 10-5 record, 3-1 in the conference, and you guys are sitting pretty well in that. With this thing of NIL now, you guys are coming. How you guys are dealing with the whole NIL and the transfer portal at Siena, and you guys are doing really well. And when you do well, people try to put their hands on you and say, "Hey, man, hey, come over here." So how are you guys kind of dealing with the success at Siena right now?
I think, when you think about it very macro, the way you're talking about it, NIL transfer portal, and you're just thinking of it very broadly, it can be overwhelming, at times. I think when you get more to the micro of it, it goes back to recruit really good kids that love basketball.
Exactly.
And when you recruit really good kids that love basketball, and we're relationship people, we always say it during the recruiting process, and you build really strong relationships, obviously transfer portal, NIL, that's going to come up.
Exactly.
It's going to be something that we handle. But when you're starting from a place of, it's a really good kid, he was raised the right way, he loves hoop, he has a really good relationship with his teammates, with our staff, with the Siena community, I think it makes those conversations, which happen, and when that time comes, it makes those conversations easier to handle. And, for us, we're in a situation at Siena where, do we have a ton of NIL money? No, but we have enough to succeed at our level, and, have a lot of people on campus. Everything's in-house, everything's through the university. So, have a great athletic director and a great support system in our administration that helps us with all that. And, we were lucky. We're one of the few teams in the country that we returned our 3 best players, last season. So, not many teams at any level,
many can say that,
especially at our level, and it's a testament to, I think, the culture that, GMAC and our staff and our players have built, where our guys want to be here. And I think they have good heads on their shoulders and realize that they probably could have made more money, elsewhere. There's other factors that go into, your happiness other than just that.
There's a lot of conversation out there that the kids these days are different, and it's not just about the love of the game, all these other factors. So you mentioned something, you want to recruit guys that love basketball, and that's a great point. Can you define that for a kid, a high schooler, middle schooler looking up, they want to make it to the next level? What is that? What are you guys looking at that you say that kid loves the game? Like what's something they can do to show you that?
Yeah, I think, I think it's either in you or it's not most of the time. And I think, the ways I see it, I'll tell you the ways I see it coming from the college side and the recruiting side of it is, first and foremost, okay, how do you act on the court, right? Are you a kid? For us, it's very simple. Are you going to lay it on the line every time you step on the floor? Are you going to play max effort basketball every time you step on the floor? So that's the first way to see it. The second way is, I think the unselfishness, the wanting to win piece. Are you out there trying to go score 30? Are you out there trying to win? A lot of things go into that, defensive side of the ball, being a good teammate, the way you interact with your coaches, interact with your teammates, that goes into it. One of the things I joke about during the recruiting process is I'm a FaceTime guy with recruits. And I FaceTime if I'm recruiting someone, I'm FaceTiming them however many times a week. And it always stands out to me, where is that kid when I FaceTime them? Because I'll FaceTime you all different times a day. There's certain guys I've recruited, where I FaceTime them every single time. They're either in the gym, they're driving to the gym, they're in the weight room, they're coming from a workout. And there's other guys, every time you FaceTime them, they're, on the couch, they're laying in bed. And, you can get away with that a few times, but you pick up habits. And, especially for us, when we're building real relationships with the guys we're recruiting, especially the high school guys we're recruiting for 6, 7, 8, 9 months at times. you get to really understand who they are as people and, what their work ethic is and how much they love it. I think it's a little bit harder in the transfer portal because those recruitments, instead of 6, 7, 8 months, sometimes those recruitments are 1, 2, 3 weeks.
Wow.
So I think you really have to have people you could trust, and you have to do your due diligence and, talk to people behind the scenes, talk to their high school coaches, AAU coaches, people around them that are going to, give you the real, and being able to sift through some of the BS and figuring out, even when you're recruiting those kids for 1, 2 weeks, you get them on campus, you put them through, a visit, staying at the hotel, being with family, meeting everybody, hearing what they say. I think you could pick up on what makes them tick and what motivates them. And, like I said, at the forefront of it all is you got to love this, because it's a grind. It's a grind to be a college athlete at any level, but especially this level. And we ask a lot of these guys, and if you don't love it, it's going to be really hard to be successful.
Well, I know you mentioned a couple of things here about your journey. Being on the West Coast at the Washington, and now being at Siena, what do you see or feel that was the biggest transition point going from Washington to Siena? Is any one thing, a couple of things that maybe it was an athlete, maybe it was something that when you say, man, I got to recruit these type of kids now to come to Siena, was it one or two things, or something that you kind of keep as your secret sauce now?
No, I don't think so. I think, at that high major level where you're recruiting, 5 stars, 4 stars, guys that, aren't a secret.
Right.
It's very rare you're recruiting guys at the high major level that nobody knows about,
Right.
right? At our level, you can get away with finding, some more diamonds in the rough and guys that people don't really know about, that no one's really recruiting them, and they might come to Siena and be a superstar.
Wow.
Whereas
Good
at the
point.
high major level, that's probably more rare. I won't say it's never happens. I think it's still a huge piece of, you have to be able to evaluate, because there's guys that get recruited at the mid-major level, and there's that one high major that takes a shot on them and they end up being a great player. So
Right.
there's different levels, but I think at our level, I think, what is the deficiency? Why are you not being recruited by those high majors?
Right.
High major level, you got a lot of guys that have, elite skill, elite athleticism, elite size. At our level, you're probably not getting someone right away that has elite athleticism, elite skill, elite size. There's a reason why
Right.
the high majors aren't recruiting them in a lot of instances. So I think it's figuring out, I'm good with whatever. If you're undersized for your position, we have Francis Folafak, who's been playing the 4 and 5 for us. He's 6'7", so he's got good size, but that was one of the knocks on him coming out. He's not big enough to play in the front court at the high major.
Okay.
But you know what? He's extremely skilled, and he's extremely physical. So if he might not have that vertical height, and that's why he was overlooked, that's something where I can take that and we can make that work here.
Right.
But it's figuring out what that is and where you can kind of identify some of those. Okay, this is why they're not getting recruited. If you're not getting recruited because you're not a great kid, you don't handle stuff, you got too many character questions off the court, well, that's not a deficiency that we're going to be okay with here.
Right.
And,
right.
Even if you are a high major talent, we're not going to take the risk on that type of kid. But, the kid that might be undersized, he great defender, plays hard, high level athlete, but hey, he's not very skilled yet. He doesn't make a ton of open shots, but high IQ, smart player. All right, well, we can work with that. We can get him in the gym, get a ton of reps. And now if he starts shooting the ball better, now we're going to have a problem on our hands. So I think it's figuring out those deficiencies and what you're willing to make work.
Right. Well, we had a chance. Coach Manny and I had a chance to see you guys play against American University here out of Washington D.C. And we watched you guys execute, and Coach Mack was really paying attention to that execution piece. And you guys, as a staff, as a total staff, we watched how you guys engage with the players, and it was a grind, and we really appreciate that type of basketball. Some people say that basketball is non-existent anymore, But as we know, to survive, you have to be able to do those types of things. And you guys having your coaching staff having high major experience at the mid major level, I think those kids get so much that what you guys bring to the table as a coaching staff. So you mentioned earlier about your day. So take us through a mid-major college or a collegiate day, your day as an assistant coach at Siena.
Yeah, I'll say this. It definitely changes, in season, out of season, live periods, non-live periods.
Right.
But, I think during the season, I'm typically up at 6:30. I start my day. Me and the wife take the dog out, 30-minute walk. 30-minute walk to start the day.
You're better than me. Let me make sure my wife doesn't see this one.
Yeah, I don't have kids yet though, so I don't have that excuse. So we take the 30-minute walk because, to be honest with you, sometimes those are the only 30 minutes of the day we get to spend together. And so what I'll do that probably typically out of the house between 7 and 7:30, depending on the day. And talking to what you said, Coach, about high major experience, all that, like, we really put a lot of that into our player development. So,
Right.
So I have the guards at Siena. So player development's at the forefront of everything we do. So it's based off class schedules, but I got 6 guys in my guards group. I'm typically working 2 or 3 out at a time. So either 8 a.m. or 8:15, I'm in the gym with 2 or 3 of them. And then depending on class schedule, it's probably 10 or 11 a.m. I'm in the gym with another 2 or the other 3 of them. So
Right.
I'd say when I get in the office, I'm getting in there 7:30. I'm maybe cranking out a couple things in the morning, but by 8 a.m. I'm on the court.
Got you.
So I'm on the court, and I'm typically on the court with our guys, typically 2 or 3 groups, hour to an hour and a half for that workout. So I'm on the court 3 hours a day with these guys.
Good.
So that's typically 8 to 11. And then that's when, as a staff, depending on what scout's coming up, we might meet. It might be a time for me to take a couple hours, make recruiting calls, or watch film individually with some of our guys. So it all kind of depends day to day. If I have a scout coming up, those are 3-4 hours. I'll be working on that scout, and then practice at 3:00. So our guys, they get individual work for minimum pretty much an hour, 5-6 days a week. And then they have lift at 2 p.m. and we practice at 3. So our guys from 2 to really 5:30, depending on if we're watching film or not, they're in the gym. They're in the gym for 4.5 hours a day, damn near every day. So, that takes us to 5:30, whatever. And then, I'm typically back home sometime between 6:30, 7:00. And, I'd like to say I come home and hang out with the family and decompress, but I'm typically, me and my wife, we have the 2 TV setup, so we watch a show on one TV. I got the quad box with 4 college basketball on the other TV. But then it's doing stuff like this. Like, that's at night. That's when I'm making, reaching out to our recruits. I'm sitting here as soon as I get off with you guys. Our junior college commit, Christian Gilliland, he has a game going on right now. I'm going to tune in and watch the rest of his game. So it's really watching our guys that are committed for next year, watching, guys for 2027 that we're recruiting, making calls. And, in today's day and age, you're talking to AAU coaches, agents, high school coaches. But, another part to go into is like that whole agent piece. Now I've got 5-6 international agents that have been reaching out to me in the last 24 hours about players that they're going to bring over to the States. Right. Those guys, a lot of times I'll knock out those calls at night because those guys are in a different time zone. It's 10, 11 hours ahead where they are. So long days, a lot of, 4 or 5 hour sleeps. And, but
I want to point out, like, because you talked about loving it earlier when it comes to the players. So I started coaching right after high school, right? It's the FIBA world. I did my certs and my stuff, and right into my high school clubs, all that good stuff. And it's almost like I spend more time in doing things about the game as a coach than I ever did as a player. It's like you really have to love it. Actually, just before we hop on here, I was on a film session with one of my kids watching. Like Coach Gasson tell you, we get the gym space. I'm in there 8 a.m. with one or two of my guys working on skill development, and it's all like we love it, they love it, so I can invest in you, right? Sometimes I get parents that ask me, "Can you train my kid?" Right, and I'm just like, "Well, does your kid love it even at the middle school level, because
Yeah.
it's a difference. They see a certain kid has a certain level of skill and they want that for their kid, and I understand that, but the kid with the certain level of skill loves the game, he takes the instruction, he develops. The other kid is doing it because mom and dad wants me to do it, right? So the question for you now is, I want to ask you is, based on what you saw when you were growing up, made hoops player, and how the landscape has changed, what's the difference that you see in kids and parents that was different back when you were younger?
Man, I think the biggest thing that's changed is I think it's just the expectation, to be honest. And it's funny, I was having a conversation with someone about this the other day, and we were talking about freshmen in college basketball, and he was talking to me about uh, one of his family members, a nephew who was at a certain school and was struggling as a freshman. And
Mhm.
I said to him, I said, he's doing what he's supposed to be doing. He's
Right.
struggling as a freshman somewhere.
Right.
That's what 90% of freshmen do. They have their struggles, and there's your few and far between. And again, you look at the top 3 picks in the draft next year: Cam Boozer, AJ DeBansa, Darren Peterson. Yeah, those guys are special, right? They can go
Right.
on to college campus in the country, average 20 a game as a freshman, be a top 3 pick, and they're incredible. But 9 guys out of 10, they're going to struggle as freshmen. And I think the problem today is everyone is so focused on everyone else that they're not running their own race. And I say it with every recruitment and every kid. Every single recruit I've recruited, however many kids over the years, every single recruitment's different.
Right.
Every single family's different. Every single kid's different. And what they value, where they want to go, what their life goals are. And yeah, a lot of them could be somewhat similar in certain respects, but every single recruitment's different, and every single player's different. And they're all going to have different lives in one way or another. And I think everyone's so focused on what everyone else is doing that it's, hey, I got to go in as a freshman and I got to average X, Y, and Z, and then I got to transfer to X place and then go do that and then go to this place. And you got to be locked in where you're at. And the reality is, if you go in as a freshman and you struggle, that's fine.
That's fine.
Now, what's not fine is, what's your response to that? If your response is, hey, I'm going to keep working, I'm going to get better, guess what? Sophomore year, now you take that jump. Or maybe it's halfway through your freshman year, whatever it ends up being. But if your mindset is, whether it's the parent or the kid or both, hey, this isn't what our expectation was. We're not happy, so we're going to go find something else. Or we're going to give up. Or we're going to start doing X, Y, and Z. That's where I think a lot of kids now, as opposed to, again, you're getting back to your question, when I was growing up, it would just be, hey, figure it out,
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
that was it.
Yes. Yes.
There's a lot less figure it out culture. And that's the best thing you could do, is be in a hard situation and figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know that a lot of our guys who come through, and people ask me a lot of times, what makes our guys successful, what makes a Virginia League guy, and I clearly say, you've seen our program. We're not for everybody. There's a certain type guy that fits our program, and that guy will eventually have success moving on downstream. And we've been very fortunate that I told somebody this other day, I'm 2-0 against North Carolina. I've never, any of my players have played North Carolina, we've never lost. When they played Wofford, hey, Wofford won. When they played Michigan State this year, Michigan State won. So I got a winning record against North Carolina.
There you go.
So I had to joke with a friend of mine who had a son that attended North Carolina. I said, well, I'm undefeated against you guys, so we just keep it moving. So, but
no, I'll cut you off, and I know you're joking around with the North Carolina record, but the reality of what you've built with Virginia Elite and the reason why so many of your guys are successful is because they go to the right fit. It's very simple. Your guys, every time they make their college decision, they go to a place that makes sense for them.
Yes.
And it's been dating back, decades now of doing this. But I think we've had conversations probably about it. It was never about going to chase the most amount of NIL money or going to chase Z, or, hey, they promised me this amount of playing time or that amount of playing time. No, your guys went to places where they fit, that made sense for them and where there was a vision for them. And that's why they've been successful, and that's why college coaches love recruiting your program, right? Because they know if they're getting a Virginia Elite player, they know they're going to be well coached. They know they're going to have a good head on their shoulders. They know they've been yelled at by Coach Gadsden. They know they could take coaching. But that's all a big part of it. And I think there's certain programs out there that's like, well, I'm just going to send it's whoever gives them the most money, or whichever the highest level that recruits him, that's where he's going to go.
And so if I can offer you a counter, Ben, on that, just to I'm with you. And earlier when you talked about expectation, I immediately went to the parents want to see their kids dominate as early as possible. In my opinion, that has a lot to do with the decisions of a lot of people to reclassing their kids, not for academic reasons, but for basketball. I would like to see a study on what percentage of these kids that are reclassing in middle school actually increase the probability of making it to college. But that's a separate conversation. But to what you're saying about the kids playing with Virginia Elite and the NIL, some of these kids, some of the arguments that I've heard is, well, this is probably the only chance some of these kids will get to make some real money. And so that in some situations may be secondary. The fit or the vision or the career is secondary to the amount of money. How do you feel about that, for some of these kids, it really is about the money because they don't think they can make it past whatever that first offer they're getting?
But let me jump in here. I have a kid. His name is Paul Rowley. Paul Rowley went to William & Mary. And Ben, I think you and I have talked about this, and the kid graduated from William & Mary Phi Beta Kappa, played basketball. He's a lawyer. So if his outlook was different, he doesn't become what he is right now. Father to, he got his law degree on a basketball scholarship. And oh, by the way, he double majored. He double majored and graduated Phi Beta Kappa in his undergrad and got his law degree. I'm like, you know how hard that is? But he always talked about his mental focus while playing collegiate basketball. And Ben, you alluded to that as a part of the development of the player, and coming to Siena is like, okay, what is your focus? Because you can walk out of Siena with a great degree and make whatever you kind of set your mind to. So, but basketball let basketball be the tool, if you want to do that.
Yeah, I think I see all sides of it. To your question, Manny, I think I'm not necessarily saying kids shouldn't maximize the amount of money they can make in college. I think they should.
Right.
I just think there's other factors, and I think there's also people don't realize how to maximize how much money you make in college.
Right.
So I'll give you an example. Is if and this is an example. I won't say the player's name, but
please.
Hey, school's offering me I can get $25,000 here as a freshman, and I know, they're only paying 3 guys on their team, let's say. So if I'm one of the guys getting 25,000, like I'm gonna be playing because I'm one of 3 guys on the team.
Yeah, you better produce.
They're not paying me to not play. Or I can go somewhere else and I might get 60, but that 60, I'm the 11th highest paid guy on the team. That's where I fall on that totem pole. So my thing is, I'm not against maximizing how much you can make in college. I think every player should. I think there's just a path to do it that makes more sense in a lot of cases, because the reality is if he's the 11th guy and he's making 60, well, now what's his market the next year? Right. The market the next year is probably maximum the same, but more likely than not, less. If he goes in 25 and he does what he's supposed to do on the court and he's averaging X, Y, and Z, he plays efficient, he's defending, well, he might be able to go and get that 25 to 250. Now I'm going to give you the next one. So now he gets the 25 and they say, well, we'll bring you back and we can give you the most amount we can give you, and it's 60. And you're like, well, I can go get 200,000 from this place. And it's like, okay, well, that 200,000, again, you might be in that same situation where you're the 9th, 10th highest paid guy. And now it's like, okay, I make the 50 or I make the 60, and now I'm first team all conference, or I'm conference player of the year. So now your freshman year, okay, I passed up on 35 grand. Okay, my sophomore year, I could have gone and made an extra 150 somewhere. So, man, you might be looking at it, Manny, like he's crazy. He's passed up on $185,000. And I would get that argument. But if he's first team all league making 60, he might go and make 800 the next year. He might go make 50 the next year. So I think, you got to be realistic. You got to understand, the money side of it. And there's certain situations where if someone's offering you 50 and someone's offering you 400, I get it. Regardless of it is what it is. And those situations happen. But I think, especially early on in your career, I think you got to be somewhere where you're going to be on the court, because, again, what's your market going to be the following year?
Correct.
And the last thing I'll say, too, on this with the older guys is I can't tell you how many guys are transferring up to get paid for their senior year, and their numbers aren't what they don't play a lot. Just put it simply, they don't play a lot their last year. And I'm telling you, more and more, you'd be shocked at how small those guys' markets are in getting their first professional contract leaving college. And maybe they got an extra 200 grand that senior year. And again, that's not my decision. And I wouldn't fault any kid for saying, hey, it's my last year, I got to max out. But I think more and more guys are seeing that they do that last year, and all of a sudden that pro contract they thought they were getting, oh, well, I went from averaging 19 to now I'm averaging 4. That pro contract you thought you were getting isn't there anymore.
I love how you broke everything down. And again, I'm with you. I'm all about the vision of development, but there's a lot of, I wouldn't say misinformation, but there's a lot of ignorance in out there. And so, guys, I mean, this is why we have the podcast, right? To have someone like Ben come in here and break it down like that. That's perspective that a lot of people don't have, right? Unless they get access to individuals like you that are in the mix. So,
and again, it's have the information and then make whatever decision you think's best for yourself. And I'll never fault any player, any young man, any family for making the best decision for them. I think too many times they're making the decision not having the information or the knowledge about it, and then they're looking back on it, it's like, damn, that was not what I should have done. So as long as you know what you're walking into and you know the downside risk of it and you're okay with that, by all means, make the best decision for you and your family.
Yeah. Well, Ben, we really appreciate you being on and sharing knowledge of your journey. We want to close out by just kind of talk about Siena basketball here. I know you guys you on the road here this weekend. You can be up our way playing Mount St. Mary's, but 3-1 sitting in the conference. What kind of summarize, where you think, how you guys go wind up. I know you got some pretty tough games ahead of you, but I know you and Coach MAAC and the staff are really getting the guys ready to run this race.
Yeah, we got a crazy stretch coming up. Starting tomorrow, we got 6 games in 14 days. So it's going to be a busy 2 weeks for us, but we have a really good group, mix of younger guys, older guys. We have 4 freshmen, we have 4 seniors, and we have just a really good group of young men that, are 100% bought in, come to work every single day. I've said I've never been around a team that has less bad practices. You could count on one hand the amount of bad practices we've had since the groups got together in June. And now I think the next step for us is over the last 2 months of the regular season here is just, okay, are you going to be a pretty good team or are you going to be a championship team? And, I think that's the step we're trying to make. And, when we took over the program, they were 4-28 the year before we got here. And, we've built it up to the point that, we're a good team. And I think the step our guys want to take and our staff, but most importantly, the players, is they want to take that next step of, okay, 10-5, 3-1. We've put ourselves where we need to be, but now, are you going to take that next step and put yourself in the mix for a MAAC championship, which, is extremely difficult. You guys know, you guys have seen mid-major basketball for a long time, and, you have to be, in terms of, like Coach said earlier, your execution, your effort, your attention to detail, it has to be damn near perfect to win a championship at this level. So that's what we're striving for every day. And, we'll see how the next couple months shake out, but we feel good about our group.
Good. Well, we definitely going to be following you and Coach MAAC and Siena basketball. Like I said before, we had a chance to see you guys play. Exciting basketball. Really kind of, it energizes us at the grassroots level to see good basketball, good coaching, especially when we know the coaches and we know what they're about. And it helps us. It helps us a lot. Me at the high school grassroots level, as you say, the fit for the team. And we've always looked for the guys who are a good fit so that we can put them in front of coaches like yourself who understand it and understand the landscape of this grassroots scene, because it's getting less and less for the high school guys, and we want to keep our record moving forward of ascending guys to the collegiate level. So we want to thank you, Coach Manny. You want to end with something?
Yeah, Ben, appreciate your time. we Coach Gaston, myself, all the other coaches in the Virginia Elite, and I dare argue every other coach I know, not necessarily in our program, we talk to these boys and girls about all the intangibles you mentioned earlier that show you all these character traits that you talked about that really determine maybe the determining factor between whether you make it to the next level or not, right? Effort, selflessness, habits, relationships, right? None of that has to do with skills. All of that is a decision. And so you making yourself accessible for us to ask you these questions and sort of solidify what we're trying to teach these boys and girls, I think is extremely valuable. Again, not just for us, but for every program, any coach out there, any player out there that's watching this. So truly appreciate your time and you making this real, because you have your coach for a couple of years. It's just like mom and dad. Maybe you tune him out when he talks, but when you were just saying the same thing for telling them, right? And this is a Division I. You were major assistant coach. Now you're major assistant coach. You guys are doing really well. You've been at all levels of this, and you're saying exactly the same thing we're saying. I think it's valuable for the young athletes out there. Okay, so really appreciate it, man.
No, I appreciate you guys having me on. I think, you guys are doing a great thing with this podcast. And more than anything, it's just, like we said earlier, just having the information. And, my line's always open to you guys, but especially for these high school guys coming up and, the young players in our country, there's more and more international guys coming over to college. There's less and less spots for our players growing up and in the grassroots world. And that's where I made my bones, was in grassroots basketball. And I love it. And that's why I love your program and everything you guys do. But, I think more than anything, these kids need people that are going to tell them the truth. It's the most important thing. And I think there's a lot of people that are telling a lot of kids what they want to hear. And the reality is that might get you close to them, off rip. But long term, these kids need people in their ear that are going to tell them the truth. And, I know you two do that. And that's why I appreciate you guys. And, look forward to following the podcast as you guys keep it rolling. And
absolutely.
Me.
Absolutely. Well, Ben, thank you. Want to give a quick shout out to one of our sponsors, Hammer Nails, here in Northern Virginia. Our guy Keith Garcia, he typed me up before the podcast today, so I'm looking kind of swift. I got my fade going on, so I'm trying to get about 20 young years on me. But I wanted to say shout out to them and supporting what we're doing, and also the basketball community within the DMV. You can't say DMV without saying Virginia. And again, want to say thank you, Ben, for your time you put in. And keep it going. Siena basketball, we're watching.
And that's another episode of The Line. If you got value from this, like it, share it, and hit subscribe. We're building a real community here. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Stay locked in. Stay within the line. Until next time.